Rev up your engines!
Well, you know, I'm not a big fan of modern Jeeps. Well, here's a letter from Josh, who pretty much agrees with me entirely. He says, my girlfriend leased a 2020 Jeep Compass, is going to end up paying a ton of money, $20,000 in the lease and counting. It burns a lot of oil constantly. Every time we go somewhere, I check the oil and it needs at least a quart and only has 20,000 miles on it. Does she have any legal recourse for getting out of her lease? It also had the battery die. You know, 2020, it's practically brand new, right? It just shows you the lack of quality in these things. It's a good thing she leased it and didn't buy it. Now, of course, you sign a lease agreement, you know. You got to agree with whatever the agreement says, and I'm sure the agreement doesn't say anything about it's not going to burn oil or anything. Now, if you owned it and you complained, you could probably get in a class action suit to sue it, but you don't own it. You're just leasing it. She made a mistake leasing it in the first place, and she's going to waste $20,000 of her money, but it's a good lesson to be learned. Now, I mean, she's leased it, so what the heck? All you're doing is buying the oil for it. It just shows you the lack of quality of the things, though. They can talk all they want with their ads about how great they are and la, 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 but comes down to it, you got a vehicle, 20,000 miles on it, it's burning a ton of oil, and the battery already went dead and it's a year old, just tells you, crap, there's no quality in those things. And with the French taking over Stellantis, I don't think it's going to get any better anytime soon. For those of you who like to import older Japanese cars, there's kind of bad handwriting on the wall in Maine. Maine is now canceling the registrations of some imported JDM cars. If they're more than 25 years old, you can import them to the United States, right? Now they're saying if they don't meet federal regulations, then they're not going to allow you to register them in the state of Maine. Now, the federal law is that you can import stuff 25 years or older, right? There's also state laws. And in Maine, they're saying, hey, you can't register some of these things. We don't like the way they are. You can't register an off-road vehicle in the state on road. They were talking about Mitsubishi Delica. They say it's a mini truck and it doesn't meet the federal safety standards. It can't be driven on the state's roads, no matter how old it is. This thing is about as large as an American minivan, and they have engines as big as 3 liters. So, as per usual, we have bureaucrats, in this case, bureaucrats in the state of Maine, getting involved in things that they don't really understand at all. They're right-hand drive, they're really low mileage most of the time, and they're nice cars. There's nothing wrong with it. But Maine says, no, you can't for some of them now, so let's hope this isn't a fad that's following up by other states. Let's hope that it's just the crazy people in Maine and it isn't going to affect everybody else in the country with cars maybe they've already imported. Now they say you can't drive them. Keep the bureaucrats out of everyone's hair. That's what I say. Beatty says, Scotty, old Elon Musk wants to push us into an Uber-like ride-share society and take away our right to own a vehicle. Thoughts? Well, I don't think so. He makes electric cars and he tries to sell them to people. So I don't know about that. He's into that self-driving crap because, you know, the guy reads too much science fiction. He even said that, oh, the Cybertruck looks like something an alien would have designed. You know, I mean, the guy's living in La La Land. Well, he's living in Austin now to save money on taxes. He moved to Texas, but still. The guy is a futurist. Think about futurists as they say the future's going to be like this, and maybe 1% of what they think is going to happen actually happens. He does sell cars to people, so, you know, I mean, he's trying to push his self-driving stuff. It'll be a long time before it ever goes. And the expense, too, is the absurd part. He has that boring company that bores tunnels, right? He doesn't like traffic jams. Well, you know how much money it costs to make tunnels instead of open highways? It's just absurd. Some of the stuff just proves the guy's living in La La Land. He may have moved to Austin, but his mind's still in L.A., in La La Land. Pickle Marty says, what's with the GM trucks losing the plastic bag trim on the tailgate handles? As I've been saying for decades now, GM's quality is just declining. Seems like every day it's declining. It's just poorly made and poorly designed vehicles. I had a customer with one, the rear end went out when it was 2 years old. I had another one 1.5 years. The air conditioning stopped working because they didn't build the condensers right and they leaked. The quality just isn't there. I mean, sad but true. They really don't seem to care much about their clientele either. I've had customers that tried to get stuff fixed by GM when they had problems. GM just said, oh, too bad. That's not under warranty. Bye. We don't care. Vote with your dollars. Don't buy them. Yeet Machine says, Saab is king. Long live the king. The king is dead. Saab's been bankrupt for quite some time. So if Saab is king, the king is indeed dead. It was an interesting company. My high school physics teacher, Mr. Philby, had a Saab Sonnet that had a V4. Not a twin, not a straight, but a V4 cylinder engine. 2 Vs. 4 cylinders. And it was a 2-stroke. You had to mix oil with the gas. They had a machine that mixed it. You just filled the container with oil and it would mix it in with it. But still, it was a 2-stroke motor. They were interesting vehicles, but they were kind of oddballs. And as far as I'm concerned, most of the customers I had that owned Saab, they're kind of oddball people. So they went along with the oddball car. But they don't exist anymore. So, I mean, if you think Saab is king, then yes, indeed, the king is dead. Kufu says, are Suzuki outboard motors any good? I know you're not a Suzuki car fan, but what about the outboard motors? Well, I'm a Suzuki motorcycle fan. They make great motorcycles. The Suzuki outboard motors are good motors too. Honda makes outboard motors also. They make excellent motors. But understand one thing about outboard motors. They don't last that long. Some of the models out there, they will be worn out after 600 hours of operating time. And even ones that are decently made, they say, oh, 1,400 operating hours, and they're worn out. They aren't like car engines. They're spinning fast propellers. And of course, they do have kind of a halfway done cooling system. They suck water out of the area that you're in, then cool the engine, and then pump it out of the exhaust. So you're taking the river, lake, ocean water, which is relatively cold, then introduced into an engine, and there is a thermostat, but it doesn't work perfectly. And that's one of the reasons they wear out faster. The thermal expansion contraction's kind of messed up because your car, that engine's a sealed system. You start it up, the thermostat stays closed, the coolant gets warm, and then when it opens, it stays at an operating temperature. You know, continually having cold lake water that's maybe 70, 75 degrees or less put into a hot engine. Most of them are made cheaper, and they don't last that long because of that. If you had a sealed system like a car with its own radiator and a water pump and a cooling fan, be another story. And I've seen boats that actually do have that, but all the outboards and everything, they're using the lake water to cool, and they just don't last as long. Rameli says, how do I check if my car has a air vacuum leak but no check engine light? Vacuum leaks, if they're bad enough, you hear them when the engine's idling, you hear a sucking sound. Now, you can listen for that. I personally use a smoke machine that makes smoke, then we inject it into the engine when it's turned off through the intake manifold, and where the smoke comes out, there's a leak. You can get smoke machines for as little as $100. You can even make your own for about $20 with a whole paint can if you want. I've got a video on that. If you want to check kind of an easier way that works quite well, you can get a can of carburetor cleaner. And then you hear the sucking noise around, you spray, and then when you spray and you hit where the vacuum leak is and there's an air leak, the engine will start idling up and down as you spray it in. And that's another good way of finding the leaks. There's other real high-tech ones too. I have ultrasonic listening devices, and when they suck air, that makes a high-frequency sound too. So I put on my headphones, and I get my ultrasonic listening device, and when I get it to where the air leak is, you really hear it loud, and you know what it is. And you can get those things for as cheap as $100 too. There's a lot of interesting tools out there you can get if you really want to. But a can of carburetor spray cleaner, when you spray it around, when you hit the air that's leaking, it'll go up and down. You know, that's what it is. Oscar Espinosa says, Scotty, are the Chinese-made Aisin transmissions the same quality as the ones made in Japan? Well, I'd have to say no. Now, they're not horrendous, but I would prefer the Japanese ones myself. I'll give you an example. For a while, Ford was making some of their Mustang transmissions in China. They were junk. They fell apart, especially the 6-speed manual transmission one. So I'm not a fan of transmissions made in China. So I'd have to say no, I would rather have one that's made in Japan. Gabriel Alvarado says, since your last video about R1234YF, do you have any new opinions on the subject? No, actually, I haven't changed anything at all. One, it's outrageously expensive. They have patents for it. So it can be $100 for a pound. 1 pound for $100. For $100, I can buy more than one 30-pound canister of 134A. Now, this is all this BS anti-pollution. Oh, it doesn't ruin the ozone, la, la, la. But it's still exactly the same refrigerant it was when I made that video. It's flammable. Now, why on earth would you change a non-flammable gas into a flammable gas in your AC system? Let's say you get in a wreck and it leaks. You could start a fire. The old stuff wouldn't. This can start a fire. It's flammable. It's just stupid politicians getting getting involved in things they know nothing about. And then I suppose they get money in the back end from the manufacturers to keep it law, because they're making so much money. And I'm sure they're giving them a little bit of incentive to force them to keep using the stuff. It was a pretty stupid idea in the beginning, and I still agree entirely. It's a ripoff. You charge more money. And the nutty thing is, the old 134A is completely compatible with that. If you put it in, the system would work exactly the same. So, I mean, it's just stupid. It's just another stupid thing brought to us by politicians. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.